Broadcasting from our studio in Ocala, Florida, I'm Brody Barcode.
I'm Ryan James.
And welcome to the Parlor, your hub for independent art and entertainment, as well as a platform to showcase independent artists and entertainers abroad. Now that's gourmet.
That it is, sir.
Hanging out tonight with us in the Parlor Theater is the incredibly talented independent artist, as well as director, producer, and writer, Mr. Asif Akbar. How you doing tonight, sir?
Good. Thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Absolutely. We really appreciate you coming and hanging out with us tonight. So here we are coming towards the end of February. How's things been so far for you in this new year?
Wow. I mean, first off, it's like, man, end of February already. Time's flying in this new 2021, right?
But tell me about it.
I guess, we can all fairly say that we've been through worse. This last 1 year actually coming up, 12 months has been crazy. It's been a lot of unforeseen things happening, bad and good. I mean, this past year I was blessed with having my first born. My daughter was born.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, man.
Thank you. So along with that, and I've been pretty busy, can't complain. I've had a few different projects that I'm very proud of, and a lot of new, projects came into fruition that was unexpected, just like a lot of other things. But I'm blessed to be, healthy and working and having a beautiful family. Definitely looking forward to this new coming year.
Very cool.
How has your projects been affected during this time?
Well, it's actually very interesting because we had a sense of definitely like a scare, thinking that the film industry was going to end and things were going to change drastically, and they have. But what we had to do is adapt with the changes. And people that were able to adapt and kind of stick through and figure out ways to make things work were able to still make content. And that's the one thing. It did hurt a lot with regular productions, but I shot a film last April. It was a Christmas movie. It's just like right in the beginning of the pandemic and the official closure starting off. And going into it, we knew that it was going to be, abnormal on set, with the safety and we actually took every safety measure and followed the same protocol that they officially started using a couple months after. But when we shot it, it was one of the smoothest productions because people were extra careful. We were under schedule, under budget, just things were well organized and ran smoother and it was a blessing. And so we created a formula, being under the circumstances, to get the job done and solve the problem. And 99% of what we have to do and our responsibility in making films or doing our jobs is problem solving, and you have to find creative ways, just like how we are creative artists and creators. Like we have to use our creative minds in solving practical problems that are in the way to make things work. And sometimes everything happens for a reason. But I can tell you, I mean, it's been one of those years where it was slow because of all the bad things that were happening around the world and the uncertainty with, just the everyday world order and functions of life. But at the same time, it was like, new doors were opening in many ways as well, if that makes sense. So I think, we're all gonna probably see better days, hopefully, coming up, as people.
And as far as moving forward with the newer films that you've been working on, have you been able to kind of apply that template as far as from the safety protocol and just safety measures? I mean, it just seeing that work just as smoothly as it worked on the Christmas film?
Yes, actually, yeah. And since the Christmas film that I did in April, I did a few other films throughout, since
Were these
that
on the
time up
directing
until
side?
now. I'm sorry?
Were these on the directing side?
Yes,
Okay.
producing and directing. After that, I did direct another movie recently in October with Mickey Rourke and Michael Jai White in New Mexico. And that was a SAG union film. And it was a bigger film, action called the Commando, which was, again, it was a short schedule because that's one of the things that kind of fit in that new formula, was keeping the schedule shorter than normal, because every day on a set is a risk now with COVID. But it's getting better. But and we were a union project with SAG, so we had to do testing, 3 times a week. We had COVID officers. We had all kinds of official protocol, certain things that we had to follow no matter what, and we were being policed by it. And again, things did go smooth. We got it done. Everything was successful. It became more of an official, set of rules than when the first time we did it in April. And in between, we've done other projects that I was part of as a producer, and it was always kind of evolving ever since COVID happened. From last March, April to even now, they're still updating the rules and regulations and the protocols to kind of fit with what's happening. Like with now vaccines coming in, things are going to change and shape up a little bit more. So we're still kind of trying to figure out what the new norm will be, on productions. So we're taking it like month by month. I have a new film that I'm getting ready to do, MR9, which was actually supposed to happen last year. But because that's an international film, we're shooting abroad in different countries in Asia and other parts of the world, where it was impossible to do that during COVID because every country has their different set of rules and laws. And, one country may be open for shooting, but the second country that we need to go into is closed. And you have to do 14 days quarantines and different things to where it doesn't line up on the bigger projects. So hopefully now it's looking like things will be cleared by the spring for us to move forward with the production on that.
I've seen on Facebook and other places on the list of essential and non-essential workers. What's your take on artists being a non-essential worker, and especially being a director, a writer, producer, and trying to tell these stories to the masses?
And it's actually interesting how they categorize the us in different places, because in some locations, like even in New Mexico where we were shooting, film productions actually counted as essential. The film crews were essential workers, where it was crazy because we had like a big unit with big trailers and lots of people, at times 70, 80 people right in the front of this house that we were shooting on location, which was right next to this major road. And people are driving by and they're looking at us like we're crazy or what's going on. Like some people even called the police thinking we were breaking the law because of having mass gatherings or something, because that's the time when mass gatherings were outlawed. And even I, at some point, I was like confused. I'm like, are we okay here? And so people were saying, no, we're actually essential, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. But it was kind of odd. I mean, we followed, the rules of wearing masks all the time and getting tested and everything, and having different zones. But it felt odd, to tell you honestly, because, we couldn't even walk into a diner and sit closely and eat properly, like normal. But here we're going, to work with 80 other people, just like, it was odd. But I found out that way that we were good over there. Now, in certain states and countries and places, like I said, they all have their different rules and regulations. So I remember even in the beginning of COVID, like 2-3 months into it, you couldn't shoot anything in New Mexico because they
that
had
place was
everything
on
shut down.
complete lockdown. It was weird. It
Right.
was almost
And
like
then all of a sudden
Alcatraz.
Right. And they allowed, because of how much the economy also depends on the film industry in certain, states like New Mexico or, California and or, even in Atlanta, Georgia, which is huge production hub. A lot of, employees out of those states, I mean, they were losing jobs. And but because we were able to figure out this formula of doing it safely, it seems to be working right now, and it's getting better.
And have you and your cast and crew, I mean, been pretty fortunate? I mean, or has there been any scares as far as somebody coming down with COVID or anything to that nature?
I mean, luckily, knock on wood, I mean, for me so far, we've never had a scare or even a false positive or people getting sick on set. And in a weird
that's a
way,
blessing.
I think it really is. But and the reason I also say it's kind of surprising and shocking is because even pre-COVID era, being on a movie set, I mean, and if you guys have been on any sets for at least a long period of time with feature films, when you're there working every day with even 100 people for months or weeks at a time, someone's bound to be sick and get sick. I mean, every film, every production I've been on, there's always someone getting sick, and then a bunch of people get sick.
Yeah.
Actors get sick, director gets sick. I've been sick myself on projects. But over the last year, again, knock on wood, and it's like the productions I've been on, people haven't really gotten that sick, and maybe because it is of the extra precautions we're taking, and being clean, always using hand sanitizers, wearing masks, and having individual meals,
cast members
and
on set.
Right, and having that social distancing and following zone rules. Maybe it is in a way it should be applied more or normally. So I've noticed that in my productions. Again, like I said, I've been part of at least I'd say about 5-6 productions in the last year, and we've been okay. But then again, like when we were shooting Commando in New Mexico in October, they were major studio productions. We were hearing every day, oh, this one's now shut down, that one's now shut down. And we're like shooting, going to set, and we're worried every day. There is a different sense of scare and concern going in. That's why I was saying earlier that the shorter days you have, the less risk you have of getting shut down or something bad happening. So like we shot that film in 11 days.
Oh, wow.
Normally on an action film like that, minimum 18 days is what's standard. I mean, minimum 18, you can go up to a lot more than that, obviously. But for 11 days, it was record. But the thing is, even with the 11 days, it's like, you're at the edge of your seat every day going in. You're thinking, oh, is something going to go wrong today because of COVID? Or are we going to get shut down because someone came back with a positive? It could be false or negative. If it's a false positive, you still get shut down.
Yeah.
I'm mostly under a false sense of time whenever it comes to filming, in the aspect that, oh, it's just a minimum of 18 days for this type of an action film. Wait, what? I'm thinking, okay, minimum 18 months. It blows my mind to hear those particular numbers in relation to years, or months whenever it comes to something like this. Because now I'm going to be watching like a heavy action movie, and I'm going to go,
well, yeah, when the Commando comes out, just know that was done in 11 days.
Yeah, that was day 11 when that completed. Okay, that particular scene.
I was just going to ask, I mean, with that and just kind of talking about that of a good sound template as far as keeping your entire cast and crew safe with regards to obviously this world that we're
The
living in.
number one priority.
Absolutely. I take it there's also, I mean, a way and a method in which you guys map this out to say, okay, we're going to keep this under, 15 days. I'm sure there, I mean, as far as, just creating that, like I said, that template for the shooting schedule.
I mean, how are those shots really conducted? I mean, especially whenever it's like a conversation shot like this, do you get one person with, let's say, Brody far off in the distance and then get your wide shots later and then add the audio over that afterwards? I mean,
Yeah, there's
how is that thought process sought at?
There's it's an interesting question because there's a lot of ways. I mean, you can skin the cat, and there's definitely a lot of movie magic tricks we use. Like on this one, and it's a method I like using a lot because what I do, I shoot to edit myself because I have editing experience as an editor on films, and I've done cinematography work. So I've blended all those elements together to really understand and know ahead of time in my head as the director of what I need and what I don't need. So right. I don't waste time, getting shots of things I know I'll never need in that. And then I cover myself enough with coverage to know, okay, at least I have enough to play with. So I'm always editing in my mind on set as we're going. So like even with the Commando, I mean, there were days because of actors' availabilities. I mean, when you have, big actors like Mickey Rourke, and then you have Michael Jai, we had Cowboy Cerrone, Jeff Fahey, Brendan Fair. It was a good ensemble piece where everyone's availability had to also match up in those days, and so there were a lot of challenges to where I was rewriting and editing in my head as we were going on set with the actors at times to just change things, make things work, to make the time. And we had 2 units going at the same time a lot of times where I had 4 cameras, like I had 2 cameras in one unit, the second unit had 2. And if we're shooting inside the house, I have that set up, and then we have another setup outside the house. I run in between, look at the monitor and shots, come back and do a unit. And it was a lot of running and gunning like that. But obviously we had to also do a lot of pre-planning carefully with the schedule, the shooting schedule. And it depends on, how many locations you have, how many actors. And on this one, believe it or not, we had pretty decent size. I mean, 35 plus actors. We had, locations all over town. But we had a great crew, and I think a lot of it was also with being able to gel with the actors and be able to be creative on the spot enough to change things as we needed. My goal was to get the story, capture the story, make it look good, and deliver something that we could all be proud of with what we had to work with. And I think we did the job. And so I started finding out more and more as we did it is that, we weren't the only ones doing that. That's kind of now become the new norm because, like I said, every day counts on a production now, and every day is a risk, believe it or not. And I don't know if I should say this, but there's a lot of Bruce Willis films now that are coming out. With actors like Bruce Willis that you see, and they're shooting them in 9 days, 10 days because of actors' availability. They're working so much, or, sometimes you can't get Bruce Willis more than 2 days or 1 day. Sometimes you can't get Mickey Rourke for more than 2 days. I mean, and, we got to shoot fast. Normally when, they should be on the film 10 days, now you have 2 days to work with them. It's, the whole formula changes at that point.
I got to say, Asif, I think it's incredible, man. I mean, the way you have it mapped as far as from the safety aspect, as well as the shooting aspect, to just a nice, clean cut, tip top package. I mean, that's incredible, man. I think that's really incredible.
for the
Thank you.
for let's say Commando, the Commando, the hectic. I mean, all right. To me, that's a hectic shooting schedule. 11 days in order to get something that's high impact. Do you feel that type of impact influenced the actors as well for trying to get such a large production in 11 days? Or was it something that they're like, I've done this before?
A little bit of both. I mean, depending on who you're working with, but
right.
Yeah, it puts a pressure on everyone, especially the actors. I would say less prep time, less. I mean, it's almost like shooting a television style.
Yeah.
Where we're like under the gun, have to shoot out an episode, but
less rehearsal.
I was gonna say not much time for rehearsal. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like this on even some of the bigger studio films now, where unless you're working on a movie like John Wick or Star Wars, you don't really get much prep time nowadays, and prep is the key. But a lot of it comes with experience. The more experienced crew, the more experienced actors you have, then it's already kind of programmed in with the formulas of, okay, they can move on from project to project and kind of have a cycle and a rhythm down where it doesn't really affect them much. Even like for me, where now I can think of any movie, even if it normally would take 30 days, I can think of ways as a backup. If we had to shoot it in 12 days, how would it be possible? Like have two visions for it, and try to get it done with what you have to work with. A lot of times you can surprise yourself of how far and how much better you can even sometimes make it when you have limitations and you're put, against the wall and your creativity is put to the test. Sometimes
we know that all too well.
Lightning in a bottle. Yeah.
We know that all too well. I mean, for our latest sketch episode, I'm having to come up with some creative,
just thinking outside the box,
nonstop shots for it, and this is going to be a complete change from our other sketch episodes in a lot of ways. But we're trying something new, putting something new outside the box. With that kind of rhythm and everything going, do you feel the movies may become a little bit more cookie cutter, a little bit more predictable? Or is it based off of the experience and the mindset of the director in order to have a really unique vision that can take the formula of production schedule, the production cookie cutter, and make something bigger out of it?
I think there are you're actually right, and you use the perfect terms. Cookie cutter is, I mean, there are a lot of movies and companies that have now fallen into that cookie cutter formula and have a pipeline of films where it looks very similar. I mean, and there's a lot of films. I worked on a film a couple months ago where it's like, wait a minute, I just saw a movie on Hulu that was very, very similar to this, and then I'm looking at another movie, I'm like, wait a minute, that's similar to another movie. So it has become where people are like, okay, in 10 days, what can we do? One location, 5 people, and and it's like, how many stories can you really come up with, at that? But then there's another side to it where I think 25% of artists and filmmakers will take that as a challenge. Like even myself, I take it as a challenge when I don't have what I need as far as resources to work with what I have and to make the best I can. Like I was saying earlier, sometimes you can catch lightning in a bottle in those situations where you're put to the test and you go that extra mile to make it work. And if you have the right team with you, with that same kind of mindset, you can do better things. It's almost like how they talk about all these big famous directors now that once they've made it, they don't have the same juice anymore as when they were first starting out, because they don't have that drive. Same thing with actors. They say the same thing, where it's like, oh, once this guy's won an Academy Award, now all the movies he does, he's just kind of reading through the lines, just walking through and like, doesn't care. That I think happens to a lot of people, even filmmakers, directors, and this at least keeps you on your toes and keeps you, challenged. And as a filmmaker, to me, that's what drives me, is I want to keep making things that I haven't done before and challenge myself. And yeah, I won't have the resources maybe to, make the Titanic yet, but at least, I can try the best I can, and the sky's the limit. You don't know where you can push yourself to sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, running with creativity. It's just, taking it as far as you can. And like you said, I mean, I've only got these few things to work with, but, my cast and crew, we're all on the same page. All right, take it as far outside the box as we can. And comes back to it. Just being.
And you're never too small. Like the production, can't be like, I remember even when I was making, short films back in the day, or small things here and there with my friends, we, took it seriously to the point where even at that point, I took it seriously to even thinking, wow, even if we knew that this was just going to be something for fun, we're showing friends and family, whatever, I took it as like, we're doing a movie for a studio that's going to get a release, that's going to get seen by people. And you have to have that mindset. I was watching the new Young Rock TV show the other night. The new episode came out. And in that, I saw something that was kind of interesting about The Rock's dad back in the day. He was a legendary wrestler, but then he had a downfall. And, he went from wrestling at WrestleMania and all these arenas to later in life, he was wrestling in, little, garage sales and little flea markets and things like that. And in that one scene, The Rock said, well, one of the magical things about my dad was that it didn't matter where he was wrestling, whether it was the Madison Square Garden or some flea market. In his mind, he's still wrestling at Madison Square Garden. And that's how he's able to put on the best show and, win the audience. And that hit me. It's like, that's absolutely right. I mean, I've noticed that even for myself, when I take on a movie, and even if it's a small budget or whatever it is, to me, I'm like, no, I'm making a movie. It's a blessing. I mean, we're blessed to be able to do what we love and make a living off of it, and say that's our career. It doesn't matter. I mean, you never know where that movie might end up,
Exactly.
And you got to take every opportunity you have in every movie, like it's going to be your last, or like that's the new, Warner Brothers movie, where then it ends up being that way. So I've surprised myself many times. So now it's like, I take every project like it's going to go. And like even Commando, I can't really say it, but it's like one of those studios I grew up watching and dreaming of. Never thought would happen, but it's going to come out of there. I had movies come out from Lionsgate, Sony, and in the past, and going on Netflix. So it's one of those where surreal things you look at and you're like, what? No, I've almost envisioned this happening, and now it's happening.
Yeah.
But you got to think, why it's happening, because you have to push yourself to making some of those dreams come true into reality.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
and speaking of dreams coming true, so Asif, like where did it all begin for you? Like, where did it hit you when you just said, okay, I know I'm going this path. This is the direction that I'm going in.
Ever since I was little, as far back as I can remember, I kind of grew up around the business because of my dad. He was a producer, and he was involved in, acting and theater in Bangladesh. But, I grew up in the States here, but, there was always a connection there. And then, just like any kid, I loved watching movies and TV. And that's always fascinated me, that actors could do multiple characters and be multiple things, like a doctor or a policeman or whatever, same guy playing. And people would always ask me, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? The typical thing. And to me, you know, sometimes I'd be like, oh, I want to be a cop, or I want to be a scientist, or I want to be, you know, this. And I started watching all these movies and started having like, you know, favorite actors and people I like in different movies. And I'm like, hey, in this movie, I see him do this, and that movie I saw. So that started fascinating me and made me curious to know how these guys can do all these multiple roles, and how, you know, how I can be like that. And then I started getting the concept of what actors are, what it, you know, is to make a movie, and how all the elements come together. And then, you know, I wanted to be an actor, and that's how I started off. But then as more and more I, you know, as older I got, my conception grew and widened, and I realized that being a director, producer, being the filmmaker is where you get the opportunity to really tell your stories and your vision. And with actors, you know, they're not really pawns. I don't like to say that, but a lot
I
of
call them
directors,
action figures.
yeah, but a lot of times, a lot of directors use them like robots. But from my experience, you know, and being an actor before in my past, understanding what it means to be an artist, an actor, I I have always treated them as, you know, collaborating artists, because film is the most collaborative art form that you have to work with every person that's involved, from the crew to all the actors. And at the end of the day, if the actor doesn't believe in the vision and can see the vision, no one will believe it, because they're the face of your product.
Yeah.
So it's very important for me to be able to give actors that freedom to be artists and create something of their own with the material you have and work together with. Some directors will tell actors how to mimic dialogue and say it exactly the way it's written on the script, or else they won't move on. They keep taking millions of takes, you know. But for me, it's what's natural and what's believable and what sells to the audience, and then tells the story. So I love that aspect of it. And as I grew to learn more and more of how movies are made, I just knew, okay, that's what I want to do. And so from a very young age, I knew, you know, I want to be a filmmaker when I grew up. So I was passionate and driven to be on that path, to where everything I did, I took it seriously. Even when I was making home movies with my friends at 11, 12 years old, to me, in my head, I was making a movie for a studio that's going to get seen by people in theaters and stuff. So that's helped me push the envelope and kind of become a producer director at a younger age, and having my own content and getting work, and, you know, and having it be more natural to me is where this is. And, you know, it's a lot of elements put together. When I went to film school, you know, we had to go through, you know, psychology classes, math classes, science classes, astrology, everything. Where being a filmmaker, it's a task of not having enough skill sets. The more knowledge you have, more skills you have, the better stories you can tell and utilize those elements in, you know, in your filmmaking. So I love that about what I do is I can always learn new things, research new things for new projects, new stories, and keep growing. And that's part of what also drives me every day, where it's fresh. You know, I can keep learning and applying those new things to make myself better at what I do.
That's really fantastic. Go.
So to add on to the nostalgia thing, reflecting on what you currently have achieved, if you had an unlimited budget and resources, what would your dream project be?
Oh wow, that's you know, that's one of those things where, yeah,
that's the $1 billion question.
$1 billion question. It would definitely be like a big epic. Nowadays they're going more into mini series, where, you know, if you can extend the story, instead of saying it in 2 hours, go into 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, but you still film it in a cinematic way. For me, it would be some sort of a biopic on you know, a legendary figure. You know, I have a few ideas and some projects I'm connected with now that I can't really say
No
yet,
problem.
but but that's definitely where it'd be like massive budget, but massive production value with being a time period piece, and then showing multiple, decades of evolution throughout the story in that one film. I've always loved those kinds of epic, films where you can see the growth and evolution of a character or multiple characters, and the journey that they take from beginning to end. Like an example would be like Forrest Gump. You feel like you get to know those characters so much better and feel for them, and connect with the stories so much deeper. To me, one of the best ones was Titanic, where James Cameron did. It was a story where it wasn't showing a long period of time. It was a few days on the ship, but it captured the character development. That's where it really is, where you can connect with them.
Yeah.
But time period pieces like that, where if it's a historical moment, whether it's based on a true story or an event or a person as a biopic, those are definitely fun and challenging, and one thing that I believe would be something that would definitely push my skills and resources to the limit, to where it would be fun. That's what I like to do, is things I've never done before, and things that are going to be challenging, to where I don't know what I can end up with, but I know it's going to be something different and better. But I would say, yeah, my dream project would be like a big time period piece that we can take a long journey on together.
Very cool.
Well, and speaking of time, I apologize. We're just about out of time, Asif. But
No problem,
I do have one last question. For
Sure.
that of the up and coming artist, for the kids working to get to where you're at today, what kind of advice would you give to them?
I would say, don't stop dreaming and never give up. Just keep working hard. Obviously, I'm in a field and career where it's very challenging and risky to choose this career path, and it takes a lot of thick skin and being able to handle rejection and criticism, and people saying no more than yes. But you have to believe in yourself and have the confidence of achieving your goals and dreams, or whatever they are. And a lot of times, in film and TV and in entertainment in general, in any artistic field, a lot of people don't realize, they get blinded by the dream. They don't really understand how much hard work it really takes. It's not, not all fun and games, sometimes, just like anything. So patience is a virtue. And, when I went into film school, I learned at that point, I was told in the beginning of film school that at that time, it was a while back, but at that time, the statistics showed that film schools had the highest dropout rates out of any other schools, medical schools, law schools, because, people went in thinking, oh, it's going to be fun and games, easy, glitz and glamour. But when they get there, it's hard work. It's school. Like when I went to film school, it was strictly a film school, Columbia College of Hollywood. And my degree was a bachelor's, in cinema. And even then I had to take psychology classes, math classes. It was a 4-year program. It was hard, and people would drop out. I think it was like 35% actually graduated. So from my freshman year to graduation, I saw, yeah, it's true. And then out of that, 5% maybe really gets a career in the field. And it's true. I've seen, with my peers, but it gave me a good foundation. And I knew I had to utilize the resources I had and put in my time and have patience. Again, with film school, goes back to taking everything seriously. When I went into school, I didn't look at it like, oh, I'm just going to college. It was a film school. I looked at like going to a studio. I had resources to be able to have access to cameras, editing facilities, fellow students that would, work together and collaborate. So you got to make the best of what you have to work with. Going back to, utilizing your resources, problem solving, and just working hard.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Because I know we work really hard at what we do. I mean,
And keep doing
writing
what you
and-
guys are doing. It's great.
Thank you so much.
You know?
Thank you very much.
And
Yeah.
this has been really fantastic. I
Yeah.
mean, not to mention incredibly educational.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, I was happy to be on. Thank you guys for having me on. It was fun. And, anytime you want to chat, let me know.
Will
Absolutely.
do. Thank you very
And
much.
we
Asif.
definitely look forward to hopefully catching up with you again very soon. Maybe even collaborating very soon. That'd be
That'd be
incredible.
amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm open to
Thank
anything.
And thank you again, Asif. This is Asif Akbar, independent director. Well, I wouldn't. Well, would we say independent?
Yeah, filmmaker. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Filmmaker,
Around.
producer, writer.
Yes.
All of our interviews are in a podcast form on our website. You can get there. You can also check it out on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and so many more. Hit the subscribe button, where my arms cut off. And thank you guys for joining us.
Mr. Asif, thank you so much again.
All right. Thank you.
Have a happy one.
Have a happy one.